Lake Volta, artificial lake in Ghana. The lake is formed by the Akosombo Dam, which, begun in 1961 and completed in 1965, dammed the Volta River just south of Agena and created a lake extending upstream from the Akosombo Dam to Yapei, beyond the former confluence of the Black Volta and White Volta rivers. With a storage capacity of 124 million acre-feet, 153 billion cubic meters, of water, Lake Volta is one of the largest artificial lakes in the world. It is about 250 miles, 400 kilometers, long and covers 3,283 square miles, 8,502 square km, or 3.6% of Ghana's area. The lake's creation involved the inundation of 15,000 homes and of 740 villages and the resettlement of 78,000 people. The lake is navigable and provides a cheap route linking Ghana's northern savanna with the coast. It also is a major fishing ground and provides irrigation water for farmland in the dry Accra plains lying immediately below the dam site. The generating capacity of the dam's hydroelectric power plant is 912 megawatts of electricity. This power is used by the aluminum smelter located at the port of Tema on the Gulf of Guinea and supplies most of Ghana's other electricity needs as well. Lake Volta, the largest artificial reservoir in the world based on surface area, is contained behind the Akosombo Dam, which generates a substantial amount of Ghana's electricity. It is completely within the country of Ghana and has a surface area of 8,502 square kilometers, 3,282 plus 12 sq mi. It extends from Akosombo in the south to the northern part of the country. Lake Volta lies along the prime meridian, 6 degrees north of the equator. The lake's northernmost point is close to the town of Yapei, and its southernmost extreme is at the Akosombo Dam, 520 kilometers 320 miles downstream from Yapei. Akosombo Dam holds back both the White Volta River and the Black Volta River, which formerly converged where the middle of the reservoir now lies, to form the single Volta River. The present Volta River flows from the outlets of the dam's powerhouse and spillways to the Atlantic Ocean in southern Ghana. The main islands within the lake are Dodi, Dwarf, and Cape of Dija National Park lies on part of the lake's western shore. The lake was formed by the Akosombo Dam, which was originally conceived by the geologist Albert Ernest Kitson during the British colonial period in 1915, to exploit the river's energy for smelting locally sourced bauxite. The idea regained prominence at the end of the colonial era after the World War II, when Kwame Nkrumah became president of the Gold Coast colony and began striving for modernization of the land. British and local governments formed a joint preparatory commission, which concluded that over 60,000 people will have to be relocated, but that the lake will boost opportunities for fishing, thus helping to feed the population in the region. On the other hand, issues with water-related illnesses were predicted, such as malaria, trypanosomiasis, schistosomiasis, and onchocerciasis. Aluminium Limited, the main industrial sponsor of the project, withdrew after Ghana became independent in 1957. Revised plans dropped the idea of integrated aluminium industry and proposed smelting imported bauxite instead. Kaiser Aluminum entered the project at this point, and after protracted negotiations, funding for the project was secured, but now without regard to residents of the impacted area as a cost-cutting measure. Construction thus began before the government started planning the resettlement. Soon after, a public agency was established, and organized construction of 52 replacement towns, which were envisioned to serve as a model for modernization and improving the livelihood of the local population. But because of the rush, the resettlement in 1964 turned out to be chaotic and inefficient. Poor organization caused the issues to continue long after the project's completion and caused significant hardship to the local population. Together, 15,000 homes in 740 villages were flooded, necessitating resettlement of 78,000 people. In the long run, formation of the lake disrupted traditional fishing and farming practices in the region and caused a large spike in disease prevalence. Government-led modernization did not succeed, and people had to adapt to the new circumstances themselves. Despite that, regional food production intensified in the decades after the construction of Akosombo Dam, and the lake also opened a large navigable pathway to the north of the country and provided new opportunities for development of tourism, which is gaining in prominence. On the other hand, water level has been decreasing recently because of global warming, reducing power generation. The Akosombo Dam produces 912 MW of electricity for the country, as well as for export to Togo, Benin, and other nearby countries to earn foreign exchange. Lake Volta is also important for transportation, providing a waterway for both ferries and cargo watercraft. Since the huge lake lies in a tropical area, the water remains warm year-round naturally. Given good management, Lake Volta is the location of a vast population of fish and large fisheries. The lake also attracts tourism, and tourist cruises visit the island of Dodi. Recent developments include a large-scale enterprise to harvest submerged timber from the flooded forests under Lake Volta. This project harvests high-value tropical hardwood without requiring additional logging or destruction of existing forest and, according to Wayne Dunn, could generate the largest source of environmentally sustainable natural tropical hardwood in the world. 7. In addition to generating foreign currency for the region and reducing the dependence of locals on fishing as a primary economic activity, the removal of submerged trees is improving navigation on the lake and increasing safety. An estimated 7,000 to 10,000 children work in the fishing industry on Lake Volta. The nature of their employment has been described as slavery in The Guardian 8 and by the CNN Freedom Project. This has been described as sensationalism by Betty Mensah and the academic Samuel Okur, since many of the children and youth whose wages are given upfront to their parents grow up to become self-sufficient fishermen in adulthood, who in turn hire children themselves and could therefore also be characterized as apprentices. They conclude that many children may suffer under exploitative work but are not enslaved. The Volta Lake is a man-made lake created after the River Volta was dammed at the Akosombo Gorge. The lake is dendritic in shape and has a generally north-south orientation with an average length and width of 400 kilometers and 25 kilometers respectively. It has a catchment of 385,185 square kilometers, excluding its own area of 8,730 square kilometers. Nearly 60% of this area lies outside of Ghana. The lake was created to store up water primarily to generate hydroelectricity. Additionally, it was envisaged that it would improve inland water transport, boost fishing, ensure enough water for domestic and industrial use and for irrigation, etc. The project was implemented by Impregilo, Italian civil engineering firm, under the supervision of the Volta River Authority of Ghana, at the cost of £70 million, and was completed in 1966. Lake Volta is the largest man-made lake in the world and was created after the construction of the Akosombo Dam. The water from the Black Volta and White Volta meet in the Volta, which flows from the dam towards the Atlantic Ocean. The lake supplies the whole of Ghana and also large parts of Togo/Benin with electricity. This immense lake, with a coastline of almost 5,000 kilometers and an area of 8,502 square kilometers, lends visibility excellently for a crossing from north to south. In the small villages around the lake there are still many traditional fishermen to be found. The Akosombo Dam is located at the southernmost point of the lake. On the west coast is Digva National Park. Volta River, chief river system of Ghana, formed from the confluence of the Black Volta and White Volta headstreams. The Volta flows generally southward through Ghana, discharging into the Gulf of Guinea. Its major tributaries are the Afram and the Odi, Pandyari. The river system has a length of 1,000 miles, 1,600 kilometers, a drainage basin of 153,800 square miles, 398,000 square km, and an average annual discharge of 42,700 cubic feet, 1,210 cubic meters, per second. Both of the river's two main upper branches, the Black and White Voltas, rise in the open plateaus of Burkina Faso, formerly Upper Volta, and unite in north-central Ghana some 300 miles, 480 kilometers, north of the sea. These two branches are respectively called the Muhaun and the Nakambe rivers in Burkina Faso. The Volta's lower course was well known to Europeans since the time of the 15th century explorations of the Portuguese, who gave it its name, meaning turn, because of its twisting course. The northern 4/5 of the Volta River's valley is now covered by Lake Volta, which is one of the world's largest artificial lakes. Lake Volta was formed after the Akosombo Dam was completed in 1965. The dam was built at the gorge where the Volta River cut through the Aquapamtogo ranges on its way to the sea. Below the dam site, the Volta River turns sharply eastward across the Accra Plains before entering the Atlantic Ocean at Ada. The Volta River, Akan, Ajuofira, Amuga, is the main river system in the West African country of Ghana. It flows south into Ghana from the Bobodio-Alasso highlands of Burkina Faso. The main parts of the river are the Black Volta, the White Volta, and the Red Volta. In the northwest, the Black Volta forms the international borders between the Ivory Coast, Ghana, and Burkina Faso. The Volta flows southward along the Aquapamtogoland highlands, and it empties into the Atlantic Ocean at the Gulf of Guinea at Adafo. It has a smaller tributary river, the Odi, which enters Ghana from Togo in the east. The Volta River has been dammed at Akosombo for the purpose of generating hydroelectricity. The reservoir named Lake Volta stretches from Akosombo Dam in the south to the northern part of the country, and is the largest man-made reservoir by area in the world. The country of Burkina Faso was formerly called Upper Volta, after the river. Lake Volta is a reservoir impounded by the Akosombo Dam on the lower Volta River in southern Ghana. It is one of the largest reservoirs in the world. It extends from the Akosombo Dam in southeastern Ghana to the town of Yapei in the central Ganja district, northern region of Ghana, some 400 kilometers, 250 miles, to the north. The dam's power plant generates electricity for the Volta River Authority, and the reservoir also provides water transport routes. It is a resource for irrigation and fish farming. The depth of the river is about 45 feet, 14 m, below Lake Volta. The Volta River is crossed by the Adome Bridge just below the Akosombo Dam. The Akwama people who once built a kingdom in both east and west banks of the river spanning present-day Ghana, Togo, and Benin call it Fira. They have a deity dedicated to the river named Mfadwo. The Volta River was named by Portuguese gold traders in Ghana. It was their farthest extent of exploration before returning. Volta is Portuguese for twist or turn. River of return, perhaps because it was where ships turned around and headed for home, or River of the Bend, in reference to its curved course. White Volta River, headstream of the Volta River in West Africa. It rises north of Ouagadougou, in Burkina Faso, in a lowland between two massifs, and flows generally southward for about 400 miles, 640 kilometers, to empty into Lake Volta in Ghana, a large artificial reservoir created by the Volta River project and extending just above the former confluence of the Black Volta, or Muhaun, and White Volta rivers. Innumerable turns along its course gave rise to the name Volta, Portuguese, twist. Its gradient is relatively gentle, about 2 feet per mile 40 centimeters per km, and rainfall in its river valley is likewise relatively low. Principal riparian towns, in Ghana, are Daboya and Yapei, the latter marking the limit for canoe traffic. Black Volta River, river in Burkina Faso, formerly Upper Volta, Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, headstream of the Volta River in Western Africa. It rises as the Baoli in low hills in southwestern Burkina Faso near Bobo-Dioulasso, and at the end of its course it empties into Lake Volta, in Ghana, a large artificial reservoir created by the Volta River project and stretching to just above the former confluence of the Black Volta and White Volta rivers. From its source in Burkina Faso, the Black Volta flows roughly north and east for about 200 miles, 320 kilometers, and then turns to flow south for 340 miles, 550 kilometers, forming the border between Ghana and Burkina Faso and then between Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire. At Bamboy, Ghana, it turns again, first north and then east, and approximately 80 miles, 130 kilometers, farther east it empties into Lake Volta, after a course of about 720 miles, 1,160 kilometers. Its gradient is relatively gentle, about 2 feet per mile 40 centimeters per km, and the rainfall in its river valley is likewise small, for that part of the world. The Black Volta may stop flowing in the height of the dry season, but between Bamboy and the Côte d'Ivoire border the river's regime has permitted construction of a dam. The principal riparian town is Lora in Ghana. There is a ferry at Bamboy. Akosombo Dam, rock-fill dam on the Volta River, near Akosombo, Ghana, completed in 1965 as part of the Volta River project. Its construction was jointly financed by the Government of Ghana, the World Bank, the United States, and the United Kingdom. The dam rises 440 feet, 134 m, above ground level and has a crest 2,201 feet, 671 m, wide and a volume of 10,451,000 cubic yards, 7,991,000 cubic m. The dam impounds Lake Volta. This huge reservoir has a capacity of 124 million acre-feet, 153 billion cubic m, and is used for commercial fishing and navigation. The large electric power generating capacity, 912 megawatts, of the Akosombo Dam meets Ghana's needs and provides a surplus for sale to neighboring countries. The dam supplies electricity to a large, economically important aluminum smelter in the coastal town of Tema. Thank you for watching this video.